I'm Ashton Addison from BlockWest Capital for InvestmentPitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Renç Korzay, the PrimeDAO Product Manager. Renç, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Ashton. It's a pleasure, man. Thanks for having us.
Likewise. I know your team has a lot coming up in the very near future and are looking to revolutionize DAOs, which there's a lot to be done in the DAO space. I would love for you to kick it off by telling us a little bit about PrimeDAO, the DAO-to-DAO initiative, and what your platform is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way to do that is before jumping into the meat of the topic, I would like to take you and the audience, a little trip down the memory lane. We go back to 2018, and in 2018, the Genesis DAO was set up as the first functioning DAO on Ethereum. And this is a disclaimer on that statement, where we ignore, the Tower of Babylon situation that took place before that. But Genesis DAO had a vision of being this new type of organization, which is autonomous, playful, experimental, simple, and fluid in coordination. And one of the ideas to achieve all of that was an idea called DAO fractionalization, where we don't have one meta DAO governing everything, but there will be smaller DAOs that provides the system with more flexibility, more composability, more collaboration. Now in 2018, due to the lack of tooling, immaturity of the market and all of that, this idea never came to life. But the vision was spot on, and that vision was seeing DAOs as not as remote or isolated or secluded nodes, but more like a networked islands. Because just like the networked islands of history of Earth, despite their isolated context, they are the catalyst of trade and cultural exchange. And that is how we view DAOs from a PrimeDAO perspective. And what PrimeDAO wants to be is the Schelling point of those networked islands. And I think the unique point of PrimeDAO is that there's a lot of protocols, there's a lot of DAOs out there who looks at the DAO ecosystem and goes what can I do the best for myself? What can be the best for me? In PrimeDAO, I think we are one of the few protocols that looks at the ecosystem and goes, how can we uplift the ecosystem as a whole? And I think that's the most exciting part.
Definitely very exciting. And yeah, you're right. I like that analogy you made there. And this DAO within DAOs and the necessity to have compartmentalization or just more organization within internet organizations, decentralized organizations, I think is going to be necessary as they continue to grow. Even the largest DAOs in the cryptocurrency space right now are small compared to what they will be in years from now, when there's tens of thousands of people collaboratively working on a project. I would love to dive into that a little bit more in why, at this point in time, why has this not come up yet? Is this the perfect time for this initiative with PrimeDAO in taking DAOs to the next stage?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good question. I think this is the right moment. This is the perfect moment for it, because at the same time, whoever is involved in a DAO, whoever understands the organizational architecture, we believe that we have this claim of being the future of organizations. But for that to happen, first we need to overperform the legacy versions. And there's a great article by Patrick, who's the co-founder of Curve Labs and one of the leads in PrimeDAO, where he kind of goes into this research and understands that the world as we know it is currently owned by banking organizations who have ownership in each other. Now, this is not a rant, this typical rant where you go all corporations are evil kind of thing, but there's something to be learned there. There's we need to understand and we need to notice that those people and corporations that own the world, they tend to cooperate rather than compete with each other. So there is this coordination game that has led to financial institutions owning a big chunk of the world and being too big to fail. And that coordination game is having co-ownership in each other and whether wanting to cooperate rather than to compete with each other. So at this moment, we have to ask ourselves, how do we facilitate the idea of cooperation over competition and implement this co-ownership relationship in a crypto native way?
Definitely. I think that's a great point. And with this DAO to DAO, are you sort of suggesting that DAOs invest with each other and become not necessarily one big DAO, but a big collaboration in order to get to that next level, obviously the largest companies in the world and the people who run the world working together obviously makes them stronger. And there's no way that DAOs can be competing with each other at such a small scale at what they're at right now. If there's collaboration, it's going to be growing a lot faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's like two main, let's say, aspects to that collaboration. One of them is culture, and the other one is like actually setting up the architecture of an organization. I think the culture aspect we can tackle first, because the way we approach this question of culture will define the output of the system. As we aim to outperform these legacy systems, it is important to understand like where we are at with centralized institutions and we're at with culturally decentralized institutions. So we will take like I will take the next minute or so to kind of go over that, because the culture that decentralized institutions are founded on are like they're inspired by the industrial era and the machine, and they are like command and control hierarchies. Our culture within DAOs, within this ecosystem, is inspired by this era called regenerative era and life itself, and they should be, more responsive, more adaptive. They are living systems, and the centralized institutions have this like linear thinking, and they function on the cause and effect relationship, and they feed off predictions, and they are more fragile to systemic shocks. And most of the time the goals of these centralized institutions are always concentrated around the individual, and most of the time around the ego. While on the other side, the decentralized institutions that we are trying to form should be interconnected and function on systems thinking. They should not control and predict. They should sense and respond. They should have that agility. They have that flexibility to basically absorb any kind of shock. And there should be an integration, between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. We should basically use both of them. And our goals are not really evolved around the ego and the individual. This is again going back to the PrimeDAO. We are all focused on the ecosystem, even the ecology, and going beyond the individual. And how do we take what has worked for centralized institutions and ground it with open source values such as like community, self-sovereignty, desire and transparency, open financial access, instead of this extremely permissioned environment that the global banking system is in? This is like the main challenge we're trying to resolve with PrimeDAO, which is enabling this, DAO-to-DAO ecosystem and collaboration.
Definitely. And I like those 2 points there, the culture and the architecture. And I want to jump into that latter half there about the architecture. Maybe you can talk just a slight bit of background on how long the team's been working on this and where exactly the platform is at right now.
Yeah, basically PrimeDAO was formed in almost 1.5 years ago, where, not a lot of DAOs were around at that time, not a lot of tooling were around at that time, but we made the commitment to the DAO ecosystem when it was just like 4,000 or 5,000 around. So throughout these 1.5 years, what we have been doing is like we have been doing a lot of user interviews, a lot of market research to understand the pain points of the DAO ecosystem and how we can uplift the system as a whole. So as a labor of those user interviews or the market research, we have been building the products that's going to help shape the DAO ecosystem to become a much more productive environment that leans on, efficient communication and efficient coordination.
Amazing. And there's so much left to do, I'm guessing as well. Maybe you can touch on, what are the main focuses, at least for yourself right now as you're working?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are going to be launching our first product, let's say, on Monday, which is going to be called PrimeLaunch. And PrimeLaunch is decentralized, permissionless Launchpad, as they like to call it. But I think there's a lot of differentiating factors in PrimeLaunch that we don't have it in the market. First of all, it's a zero fee platform at the moment. So anybody who wants to use PrimeLaunch to launch their tokens, to launch their project, we will not be taking any kind of fee. And this goes again to our commitment to the ecosystem and not ourselves, because we can easily put like 2.5 fee, 5% fee, get the half of the Ethereum that you're collecting, which is like the main thing out there. But we don't want to do that. We really want to commit to this ecosystem uplifting model, and we will have basically 2 modules. One of them is going to be seed launch, which offers this token launches by providing a clean interface for fixed seed offerings, where a project can be customized by the project owner. You can add a whitelist, you can add a geo blocking. You can add your own legal disclaimer to it. Any kinds of customizations there. The other part is what we call a liquid launch, where we basically leverage balancer V2 contracts and their liquidity bootstrapping pool mechanism, and it will help to eliminate the possibilities of price swings targeted by automatic trading bots, where we ensure fair token prices. One of the major benefits of this mechanism is that launch participants will not have to wait for external exchange listings to access liquid secondary markets, unlike the traditional initial coin offerings. If you go into like a little bit more detail on why this is a superior product, is we really, when we were building the smart contract architecture, we really want to make sure that we provide the safest solution to everybody, not just like the project owner, but also the contributors, like a 360 approach. So the smart contracts are architected in a way that will avoid situations like rug pulling during the LLPs. For example, you're only able to provide liquidity to your project in the beginning. You're only able to set the initial weights one time. You're not able to intervene how the weights progress, and you can only withdraw liquidity once the project ends, when everybody is signed off. So there's no way to pull the liquidity before that. So I think those are quite differentiating factors of the product that's coming up on Monday.
Very cool. And it sounds like this has been a long time in the making, and now it's right around the corner. And there's still a lot of people that I've spoken to, and they actually haven't heard of PrimeDAO. And I'm curious if there's any prerequisites, or if people can get involved on Monday for the Prime launch right away.
Yeah, so on Monday, the PrimeLaunch application is going out. On Tuesday, we're going to have our token launch with a D2D ticker. Again, committing to this DAO-to-DAO system, we have our ticker as D2D. And there will be no whitelist, there will be no permissions. You can just go to PrimeLaunch application, where we will have our own token launch on our own platform, which I think not a lot of people can say. And I think that's also like another beautiful thing of PrimeDAO. Like, we really are builders, and we really consider ourselves as a part of the system.
Very cool, Renç. And yeah, I think this is a big milestone. And I want to hear, your vision way down the road with PrimeDAO, as the DAO ecosystem will probably be completely revolutionized in the coming years. In 5 to 10 years, how do you see the future of DAOs and how PrimeDAO will fit into that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ashton. Thank you for bringing that up. I think in the near future, after Prime launch, there's going to be another product coming out called Prime Deals. I think that's going to revolutionize the DAO ecosystem, where the coordination and the collaboration between DAOs is going to be much more fluid and much more easier, where we are going to be able to provide a platform that only helps negotiation, but also supports the on-chain execution in a flawless way of things like, the token swap, joint ventures, co-liquidity provisions, co-farming, all of these things that we are doing to uplift the DAOs around us. I think that's product going out there, and us, facilitating that coordination and collaboration is going to be a big milestone for the DAO ecosystem. There's this concept that I would like to touch on, which goes into like what you were saying. It's called squad wealth. And it was brilliantly presented by our friends in Laura Lotti and Sam Hart and Toby. Basically, the theory of squad builds on self-recognition. It is not a technology. It's not about me or it's about you. It's us. It's we, and it's ours. And that's like our, let's say, perspective to all of this. We have this incredible squad space in the DAO ecosystem, where distance is no longer a barrier, with closeness of the network space, and the communication barriers can be easily torn down. So the core of the squad production is the continuous production of the squad itself. So the more we produce, the more we uplift everything around us. And the squad production begins with the creation of processes and interfaces and products that convert creative labor into units that can be transmitted by global network participants. By risking together, by working together, not through individualism, but through collective maintenance and care for one another, and the architectures we're aiming to build, we will achieve squad wealth as an ecosystem. And this wealth doesn't really just involve like monetary or economic terms. It's like the satisfaction you get from life and the ecosystem you're in.
I love it, Renç. Well said. Very cool. I'm excited for all of that, you know, first the launch and then everything else that's coming as well. And as you mentioned, the launch, I want to make sure people can get to the communities and to the right spot to get it in time on Monday and Tuesday. What's the best way for people to find more and to get involved in the PrimeDAO communities?
Perfect. So you can always follow our Twitter, which is PrimeDAO_. And there's a lot of news about partnerships, about articles, about content we produce. You can find it there. You can go to our Medium page and our Mirror page to follow all the latest news. I think joining the Discord is probably the most active place. We have a great and a very active community there, and we'll be able to feed you all the information you need.
Sounds great, Renç. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. All the best with PrimeDAO and the launch. I will leave those links as well in the description box below for the viewers. And let's follow up in the near future.
Cheers.
Cheers.